I mean, I look at it and I have these gut feelings and I go for them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've painted over paintings I shouldn't have painted over.
Sure.
It goes both ways.
Right.
You know, there's ends to that process that don't always work in my favor. And I try my best to learn from those.
Right.
Concluding a painting doesn't necessarily mean it's finished, or it won't be painted on again. Now, if it's taken out of my hands and someone else, acquires it somehow, whether, buying it or, gift, loaning it, whatever, I might be less inclined to work on it.
Right. Right. If somebody else
has a travel history,
right.
And at that point it's way more layered and, but it's neither here nor there. It's the painting is complete, and if I decide to paint on it again, it happens.
Sure.
Very.
So I'm Murph and of MowseCafe Studios, and this is the Local Artist Guild podcast. And today we've got a good friend of mine, Chase King, and we're going to hang out and talk for a little while. I don't know, shoot the breeze and talk about stuff that we like to talk about anyway. So welcome, Chase. Good to see you, man. So glad to see you.
Too.
Good day today, I hope.
Yep.
So give us the basics, the basic who you are, where you're from, and all that good stuff. Just, for people that don't know who you are and maybe you haven't met. And then I've got a couple things I'll throw out there and we'll see where it goes, man.
All right. Well, I am from Woodstock, Georgia. I've been here all of my life. I went to Etowah High School, went to KSU for college.
Nice.
Woodstock's my stomping ground, always has been.
Cool, man. So born and raised, yeah?
Yeah.
Very good. Cool, man. And so tell us a little bit about what you do. We've got some of your work here, and
right.
I know a good bit about it, and I know some people are really familiar with your work, but for those who aren't, catch us up with what you do and maybe a little bit about how you got here.
Okay, so I'm an oil painter by trade, but I've dabbled in a lot of different medias, but oil painting is where I tend to gravitate towards.
Sure.
But with oil painting, I have used my enthusiasm for nature, exploring, adventures, explorations, those sort of things I've used to document. Painting has been a way for me to document those things, and it hasn't really ceased since I began painting when I was 16. I had a good mentor in high school.
Cool.
Robert Putnam. You've met him before.
One more time, what's his name?
Robert Putnam.
Oh yeah, very cool.
You've met him.
Nice.
You've met him a couple of different times, but he's been a major influence of not just with painting, but just as a life mentor.
Cool.
Exposed me to a lot of different things early on that I needed, but yeah. Aside from painting, I work with Parks and Rec in Woodstock, so I'm out and about at all of our parks, on our trail systems. It's fun. I just started doing that back in November, but it's kind of a good steady job. I've got a baby girl on the way.
So sweet. Congratulations. Awesome.
There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, but also a lot of excitement. So I was trying to maybe be a little more proactive as far as taking care of a little girl and trying to provide as much as I can, but also, still be myself and grow.
Sure.
As an artist too.
Yeah, life just constantly changes, and I know you pretty well, but I've known a lot of things have been going on. Excuse me, and it's cool how you've learned how to integrate your passion and love for creativity and art, and you found a way to integrate what you do on the day-to-day to help fuel those fires. I know we've had some conversation about how you keep the fires burning hot and things like that, both directions, but that's a really cool, it's a lot of great life occurrences and happenings and evolutions that just, that just kind of keep coming, and you keep rolling with it. But you always come back to, ever since I've known you, you always come back to painting and art and expressing yourself, and mostly through oil painting has been my experience. But I've seen you work in printmaking, mixed media, multimedia type things. Some work with photographs, drawing, all sorts of things. And you've gotten to the point now where I think not too long ago, you've started up some classes locally. Some painting, yep. Some art, creative, artistic instruction classes. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. You got a lot going on. I tend to forget about things that I'm doing, but I was trying to hit the bigger points. But definitely teaching was something I started doing a couple of years ago to fulfill a need, I guess, that a friend now, but at the time I didn't know her other than through Instagram, which was Betsy Curry.
Oh, yeah, sure.
She was hounding me, or not really hounding me, but I'm being a little, I guess I'm elaborating a little bit here, but she was just messaging me on Instagram, hey, let me know if you're going to teach. I definitely want to take your class. And I didn't really think anybody would want to take a class by me. I mean, I'm barely 30, so I mean, I don't know anything. At least that's at least what I thought. And I got into it, and I started realizing that teaching isn't necessarily about sharing knowledge. It's also about understanding people as artists and how they can interpret what it is you're saying. And it also helps just describing my own process and how it comes out to other people and how they relate to it. And I can learn a lot that way, being on the other end instead of being a student, kind of being someone that people are coming to for advice and constructive criticism. I found that to be very helpful and meaningful as an artist and as a person. So I've continued to do it, and I'm trying to grow it and maybe go down different routes instead of having like me as a central, like, not central, but guiding everything. I've got into the idea, borrowed from college and things like that, where we get a figurative model come in and all the artists just sort of take their own perspective on what they see, and we all just sort of look at it throughout the night. And that's been a really cool experience. We're going to go for another 6 weeks in July through August. So we're looking forward to that. It's kind of a smaller class right now because the space doesn't really allow for a big class, but I think we're using it to our advantage because it's small, intimate. We can all just kind of hang out, look at the model, draw, sharpen up our skills, and learn from each other.
And even the basics. Yeah, you're just talking about working with groups of people or one-on-one. And it's even the basic things like mechanics, how you like to do certain things, and just sharing that with somebody else. There's a lot of personal connectivity in those experiences, and people. I think people get so much out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that not in just their artwork, but the way they speak about their work. A lot of artists I've found are really good and well skilled in what they do, but they don't necessarily know how to convey that in words. And it's not necessarily important to do that, but among artists, I think it's helpful for us to be able to describe what it is we're trying to do. And the go-to way to do that for everybody is with words, generally speaking. So I think it's kind of important for artists to get in groups like this and chat, talk, hammer out their ideas and see what works and what doesn't. Because all artists, we've got all kinds of grand ideas, but not many pan out. And I think it's because we don't necessarily verbalize it and communicate it and test it. With words.
The testing, like practicing on someone else essentially, and seeing how it. I struggle with that myself, and that's a really great point.
I do too.
To put out there.
Teaching and getting in teaching, or even just being in a student body, like when I went to college, that was one of my biggest. I guess that was one of the bigger highlights of my college career, was being among groups of artists all day. And just seeing what everybody's doing, hearing what people have to say, you learn and you grow that way much faster than just doing it on your own.
Right.
College was just kind of like rocket fuel for getting to that point. Eventually, everyone gets to a point in their career where they're faced with confronting their own ideas and things like that. But I think it was really helpful. So, yeah, I'm always going to advocate these kind of things, and no matter what it is you talk about. I mean, hell, I mean, I'm all for disagreeing company because that's where you learn the most.
Right.
And I think once you get into a discussion and it turns into a debate, there's way more value in that, I think, because you're challenging people's opinions and values in a constructive way.
Sure. And it just offers a lot of opportunities to grow.
Yep.
Both directions and mutually, and just all sorts of.
That's the big. The ding. That's the kicker, man. It's just the growth.
Right.
I can't really stress that enough.
Sure.
You just learn from people, and if you're open to that, you will learn. One way or another, you will.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super glad that you're here.
Me too.
I'm going to refer to one of my notes real quick. You were talking about, talking to each other in your classes and about expressing yourselves and learning how to communicate, expressing yourself. We've talked not too long ago about how we use what we do as a tool to communicate, and how we each, as artists, tend to speak in our own language and our own communication style. So you have, the language, and then even you have dialects to an extent where even the smallest details can be adjusted and changed in these styles of expressions. But we all do it so differently. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Talking about being around other people, I love being around so many people that do so many different things, and almost looking for places where things overlap. But it can be difficult to find.
Yeah.
And I know we've known each other for a good while, but tell us a little bit about your communication style and just the language that you speak and things like that. The ones that that you're talking about, you learn how to talk about your work with being around other artists and things. But touch on that a little bit. Tell us what you...
I try to separate how I speak about my artwork in a way that levels with people. Like, I'm not trying to go over people's head with what I paint about, because it's not really like, it's not about like, it's not a highbrow topic I'm going for when I paint, but like, I want to hear what people have to think. So I ask more questions than I do answer, because when people look at my artwork, I'm not trying to spoon feed anything. I want, your gut impression. And if you have questions for me, I'm all in it. Like, we can talk and go at it. But like, that's where I try to just draw a line. I'm not trying to spoon feed or tell people what to see. I think it's way more interesting if people can see something that they find personal.
Sure.
And then that is a segue for them to experience my artwork more.
And maybe dig a little deeper and ask some questions. Like,
and if they want to ask,
you enjoy it. Yeah, you really do enjoy that.
And then, we start. They'll ask me a question. I'll be like, well, I'll ask them another question. It's just like boom, 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 and then you start learning about the person you're talking to, and then it becomes way more about each other than it is painting or the artwork. The artwork is just like it's a bridge.
I like that.
Connecting people in a way that is unique to our society.
Sure.
Because we have a lot of superficial ways we all connect. Like, let's go to a bar, let's go eat dinner, let's go to a park, let's whatever.
Small talk activity.
Artwork is a lot more personal, and that doesn't mean not just for me. It means if someone looks at it and they have a deep reaction to it, it's because it's something personal. It's triggering something personal to them, and that can be good, bad, happy, sad. All those emotions and feelings occur, and my hope is that whoever sees that and gets some sort of reaction, I'm there to be able to see that.
Sure, and
maybe have a conversation with them if they want.
Yeah, and that's a great point because I've noticed over the years that when people find an emotional connect, of course, depending on their personality type and the situation, things like that, they do want to talk about it. They do want to tell you why this connects them to something in their life, or the story about this idea or color or combination of lines and shapes. And that's a great point. It is a bridge. That's a great way to put that. I love it.
It can be a bridge. It can also act like a runway, for an airplane.
Sure.
Like once you get started, go real fast, and you can get places really quick, and especially when it's something that really hits home with you, like something whether the colors are just moving a certain way that reminds you of a childhood experience, swimming in cold water, with manatees.
Right.
Those sort of things can happen in an instant, and if someone's willing to share that with you, that's a whole nother level of connection that you just don't get with a lot of things that I was talking about earlier. Like dinner, and you can get to conversations that are meaningful at dinners, and I wasn't trying to say that, but it's like going to an art museum or something. Like if you bring someone along with you, and someone who actually really appreciates art and understands at least a little bit of history about art,
right,
you can have a really meaningful experience with that person. And I feel like that's kind of a really important thing as artists to experience. With other people. So when
and
with their artwork.
Just go down to a finite detail real quick. So when you begin, I know how you operate, but for the sake of other people, when you begin on a project that you feel has some legs under it and it's gonna move, I know that you have several steps that you like to go through, and the mechanics of your process is really important to you, and it shows in your work, I think, in a very real way. So when you begin a journey to complete a project, do you start with an end result in mind to, in your own language, of course, to communicate, but at the same time, you're leaving it open to other people's interpretation. So I guess to summarize, do you have an end result in mind, or do you feel it out as you go? Tell us a little bit about your actual process of building a painting.
Yeah, that's a very layered question.
So I know you will do studies. If you're really encapsulated by a subject, you'll start with your studies and go through, again, the mechanics and process.
Yeah.
But I've noticed over time, and us being in each other's lives, how we are, is that you sort of develop your imagery as you go along to some extent, where you may have originally had a finite idea. It will evolve over the course of the project itself and the way it develops and evolves. But again, that's that's how I observe the educated process and how you approach it.
Right. I wouldn't say my process is intelligent by like the definition intelligent. Like it's not a scientific clear cut boom, like A, B, C, D. But I went to that Van Gogh immersion exhibition thing downtown, and I saw there was a big quote on the wall. It was projected. It said, Van Gogh had said something along the lines of, drawings are like seeds to paintings. And I really resonated with that, but I want to take that a little further for my own personal explanation for your question.
And I see the connection there. So.
Memories are like seeds to paintings for me. Or experiences are like are like seeds for paintings for me. So the more I involve myself in what it is that makes me feel happy or enthused, whether it be nature or something specific, like, you know, the lightning bug population is through the roof right now.
Right.
So those sort of things, I just like to study things, but I study it in a way that is very human. It's
Sure.
not like an artist isn't just this person who has like this superpower. It's
Right.
I just try to tap into what it is that makes me feel attracted to something. And I just visually describe it, whether it's with a drawing or layers upon layers of painting. I just try to describe it. And I also try to tap into what it is that makes me attracted to. So
Sure.
if I'm feeling something, I try to I attack that idea, and I'm going with it. You know, I'm doing a session just based on how I'm feeling.
Right.
And then,
Right.
you know, a couple days later, maybe a couple weeks go by, I'll look at this painting, and I may not feel that way again, but I have that documented.
And you're still connected.
So I'm going
because you have the documentation.
Yeah, so
you you know how to get back to it.
I just get to a point where I'm chopping at ideas, and I just land. At one point I just land on this absolute feeling.
Sure.
That it's a culmination of study, documentation, mistake, errors, upside down painting,
Sure.
not looking at it for a month,
Right.
looking at it again, all of it just sort of, when I get to a point where I'm finished with it, it's a culmination of all of that. And it's a gut feeling. I can't quite describe it, but that's the best way I can really at this moment, is just, it's a gut feeling that if I feel like a painting is done, it feels like an absolute feeling in that moment. And maybe a year, maybe 2 years down the road, that painting might not be what I once thought it was. It may not hold up to the standards that I'm currently in. And that canvas will take on a whole nother level of effort on my end.
So
to salvage it, it has a layer of time and energy into it that is separate from my current state of being.
Sure.
So when time goes by like that, and I'm able to revisit a painting completely, almost objective to the original idea, I am at that point using the surface of the canvas and little details to really create something new. It's like that painting was a weed, and I'm now trying to make it sprout up into a tree.
Sure. And
that has its own level of effort that I have to put into it. And I have some canvases that have 5, 6, sometimes even more layers of underpainting, you know, finished paintings that have just become something completely different.
Sure.
And it's just kind of those are really special paintings to me. They may not be my best paintings because it's just the level of texture and history involved. It's really hard to make something come out of that really pure and genuine, because there's so much going on. It can become muddled and doesn't look as seamless as some of my more, you know, less layered paintings.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you've got so many prior investments made in, let's say, a single surface, that it's not lost, but you get to a point where there's actually no way to extrapolate all of the prior experience, because you've, over the course of time, decided to start anew,
start anew,
rework an idea, or you have something different to say, or maybe you just, you know, want to reuse the material. I don't know. Is that, what do you think about that? Is it, I mean, you're not necessarily just painting over paintings.
Yeah,
but there's a reason. It's backed with some reasoning.
I've done some paintings that my wife Madeline has gotten upset with me for painting over. Because she loved the paint. Like that painting, for example, had been painted over previously. It was two horses going through a thicket of briars, and I had really liked the painting at first, but it wasn't settling with me over time, and I just decided to add to it. And she didn't really agree with me, but I can't even really. Some people think it's painting over painting, and essentially it is, but to me it's just
it's
not
so
personal.
It's not
so
necessarily that.
Yeah.
It's the activity is there, but that's not necessarily the deeper connector meaning behind. That's not the motivation is to just paint over it.
No, it's an intentional act. It's not something that I just do carelessly.
Right.
Like I really put a lot of thought into it before I paint over it, so to speak.
A lot of intent and sincerity and deliberate decision making goes into what you do, and I like how you're explaining that. That's really cool.
Yeah, but then again, it's not really a science. So like, I look at it and I have these gut feelings and I go for them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've painted over paintings I shouldn't have painted over.
Sure.
It goes both ways.
Right.
There's ends to that process that don't always work in my favor. And I try my best to learn from those.
Right.
But yeah, concluding a painting doesn't necessarily mean it's finished, or it won't be painted on again. Now, if it's taken out of my hands and someone else, acquires it somehow, whether, buying it or gift, loaning it, whatever, I might be less inclined to work on it.
Right. Right. If somebody else
it has a travel history,
right.
And at that point it's way more layered, and but it's neither here nor there. It's the painting is complete, and if I decide to paint on it again, it happens.
Sure.
In a very layered way.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good thoughts there. I remember the horses now, I think. And then
they were blue.
Right, and then
there's a hoof that you can, in the bottom of that painting, there's a hoof.
Sure.
Of the horse.
Right.
That's still there. And actually part of the landscape is still intact too.
Right.
But I added a lot more color and a hidden figure and a lot of different things in that painting that wasn't there previously.
Hidden figure, do you find yourself leaning towards hidden figures, or I know they're not necessarily suggestive imagery, but where you're subtly communicating, you're not requiring a specific interpretation, but you're sort of helping the viewer get to where you were to some extent.
Yeah, that might be somewhat of a metaphor for suggest the viewer if they catch it,
Right.
Like I was saying earlier, I'm not trying to spoon feed people, but
sure.
It might be my way. It might be my lasso to the audience, maybe, to say, hey, this might be a little insight into what I'm trying to convey to you. Like if I put a hidden figure or a bird or, something that might be hiding in a painting, for example, like no one really sees this bird here.
Right.
No one, or this little face with a cone head. Like what is that? Is some kind of like mannequin? Like what's going on here? I don't necessarily know what's going on, but I feel like these things that are hiding is a way for me to surprise you.
Sure.
Maybe catch you off guard. Maybe remind. It's more of a reminder for me, but I've found through talking with people that do find things that are hidden in my work, they're like, I just keep finding things.
Keep finding things.
And what does that do? That keeps you more interested, and it keeps you more engaged in what you're seeing, and also it's like a feedback loop. Like you start seeing that, and then you relay back to your own mind.
Right.
And that just keeps you more interested and engaged in what it is you're experiencing with the artwork. Visual art is so compelling that way because it's not like it's not a lot of like flashy things that are like trying to grab your attention, like
right.
with what we experience with today, with motion picture media, internet, things like that.
Right.
It's very, very quick and grabbing, all these sort of things. I think painting is a little bit, kind of gears you down a little bit.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, you have to.
I try to take advantage of that.
Have to be paying attention to some extent. And
and if you don't catch it, I'm going to hurt my feelings or anything like that. It's just what it is. But when
you catch people paying attention enough to note details that you were connected with, it certainly helps. It really helps you feel good inside about how you were expressing yourself, the time you took to maybe work on that detail, or pull it forward a little bit in a painting. It's a great thing, and I think something as simple to when people are open to it, something as simple as a lighting shift, you'll see a whole different painting.
Yeah, and
a time of day, a lighting shift, or a reflection off a piece of glass. So anything can really influence the different things that you see. So you can look at the same painting 1,000 times and see 1,000 different things if you allow it to occur.
One thing that I like to connect with the people that look at my paintings, and I'm able to, I can resonate with people that like my paintings and see things in them because of the way that these hidden objects and figures come out in my painting. Sometimes it's not always deliberate.
Right.
Like the way I paint, it's loose and it's can be ambiguous at times. So when I'm applying paint, I step back, I look at it, and I start to see shit.
Right.
And I start to hone in on that and make it. The painting tells me kind of what to do at that point.
And you just help it develop.
So it's cool when people see stuff in my painting and then they see something that I don't see. I'm like, oh, you know what? That's exactly how that thing that I see happened.
Right.
It didn't happen deliberately. It happened upon me.
Sure.
Just like you happened upon it.
Right.
Like it's just, that's really cool to me. And I want to, I try to encourage that process in my work and in the way that I live. I want to happen upon things in a way that is meaningful and can be taken as a hint to, execute your life in a way that you want.
Sure. Yeah, magic isn't always planned. Some of the best magic is not planned at all.
Yeah.
And when you sort of, again, allow that to happen or help it along, or you kind of listen to what your painting is asking of you to help bring it to where it's going.
Yeah.
And then you get viewers that pick up on those same portions, and then they're able to sort of pick up those expressions in a real way and just connect. And like you said, see things that you didn't see. So now you're looking at a different painting. So you're seeing it from a different perspective. And when you share things like this with people, you get so much feedback just by their absorbing it to some extent, I think.
Yeah, it makes me feel less crazy.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
if people start seeing things and recognizing things, it's like, okay, maybe, it's not, this is working, and it's working in a way that's resonating with people that, to me, that is, I don't know, it just makes me feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a good, fulfilling point of fulfillment in what we do and how we communicate and express ourselves. But you can definitely see and feel the emotion and the experience and the trial and error. You can feel sort of all of your journey in almost all of your individual pieces. And that's a really cool thing to be able to, the minute details and to understand and absorb what it is that you're trying to say and how you're trying to say it. But then the way that you're connected to the world around you also comes out in your work. And that's a really, really cool thing. A lot of nature, a lot of shapes that you find in nature, color palettes and things like that. Can you tell us anything about how you go about choosing a palette to work in?
And the palette in my studio is definitely influenced by nature, but it takes on a more of a dreamlike feeling in my studio. Like I love to go outside and draw from life, but when it comes down to my oil paintings, I don't want to imitate or mimic nature. I want to capture its essence of what it does to me and what it can be for my spirit. If that makes any sense. So my colors take on that role of spirituality, dreamlike states. It's elevating what I see with my own eyes into something much larger or much more grand. Maybe definitely along the lines of an imaginative realm.
Sure. Okay.
Where things are hiding in places in a behind a tree, or you're starting to find like these plants growing out of logs, like real subtle. Like I want to be in those paintings, so I just try to let my color work and my subject matter and my forms take hold of me and become what it will. Once at a certain point, I kind of just get out of the way and paint intuitively.
Sure.
Just without much thought at first. I go into a painting, it's very loose, ambiguous, all those things, and then I'll start to hone in on things as I see them. I'll refer back to my memory,
sure,
to what I see outside, what I'm thinking, and again, it all kind of boils down to the culmination of my life experience and the painting, and what the life of the painting is telling me, because it takes on its own presence at a certain point.
Sure.
And that's when you really got something going, when you have a painting that has got more energy than you know what to do with.
Right.
It consumes you.
Sure. And you can definitely feel it.
Yeah. Once you start to feel those sort of things and you go for it, it can be a very spiritual thing. And I like that. That's why I think, I don't really know if I've ever really been able to describe that until recently in words, but I think that's why I continue to paint through all hardship, all feelings.
Right.
Whether it's good or bad, I'm
good or bad. That's right.
I just go, and what becomes of that, I have at least a document to look back on and reflect on, and hopefully maybe it can reach other people in the process.
Right.
If I'm lucky. Painting's very selfish. Making artwork in general is very selfish. But
yeah, right. I totally.
It's really rewarding when people can connect to what you're doing.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's not something superficial either. It's something that's very meaningful, and you can tell.
Yeah, emotionally driven, very sincere. Like, you can definitely.
Don't make paintings for money.
Right.
Don't make paintings to make a sale. I mean, would I be opposed to that if I were in a position to make money off of my paintings with just making a painting and selling it? I mean, hell, if I could do that, that'd be awesome.
Right.
But, I know where I came from. I know my roots as a painter, as an artist. I know why I continue to do it. And as long as I can maintain that confidence, I mean, I'll paint till the day I die, whether I'm successful financially or not.
Right. Yeah, it's not something that just goes away.
It's in my genes now.
Right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out and watching our podcast today. And Chase, thanks for coming out.
You're welcome. And thanks for having me.
Can't wait to see you again, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again soon and have some more good conversation.
Yeah, I just live right up there.
Cool, man.
We're good.
Well, he's not mic'd up. I'm just realizing too.
No,
he's mic'd up.
Oh, sweet.
Put it back in. I thought he was like getting up to get ready. I was like, wait a minute, we got an outro to do.
Yeah, cool.
But
we good?
Good.
Okay,
That
cool.
was good. We're ready.
I live right up there. Yeah, I got you.
That was good.